Hello everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our mission making the safe way tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to cover making loadouts for all of your units and how we generally go about that with our SAEF template. It's really simple, and it allows us to grab essentially loadouts directly from Arsenal without too much of a fuss, and that'd help quite effectively in setting up our loadouts for missions in the future. Cool, so let us find a team leader loadout. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this loadout from Arsenal by clicking export down here on the bottom of Arsenal, and then we're going to take it out to our mission file, which is here. And we're gonna open up our loadouts folder. So what we're gonna do is we've already got our core thing. We want to keep that separate. We're gonna create a new .sqf, which you can do simply by creating a new text document, and we can call it this guy's our team leader, so let's call him team leader. And you want to get rid of that .text on the end, because then it won't be able to get read by Armor's engine, and we change it to .sqf. You confirm that you want to change the file extension because we know what the file extension is, and bam, we have a team leader.sqf. It's got nothing in it. We open it up and we hit Control V because we had exported our loadout to the clipboard. Jeez, can't find my words today. Anyway, so what we're gonna want to do once we've got it here is we're gonna want to highlight this. As you see, it says remove all weapons. This literally, you want to highlight this, and what we do is we open our little binoculars thing up here, we hit replace, we go replace with player, because what we want to do is we want to affect the player. We don't want any AI to get these loadouts. We go sweet, and we hit replace all, and what that essentially does is it finds all of this in the folder and it replaces them with players. An important thing to remember about when you yank a loadout from Arsenal is that we want to get rid of this player set face thing, because what it'll do is it'll overwrite the player's face, you know, their default set identity for multiplayer. We don't want to do that, so you just yank it there. And what you also want to do is, you see here it says player link item tf and prc152_1, and now what this is when Task Force assigns radios to people, it essentially gives everyone radios with its own class name. So _1 would be the first radio assigned to a person, _2 the second, and so on and so forth. And the problem with that is that when you give them one of these, if you give everybody the _1 radio, Task Force thinks they all have the same radio, and when one person adjusts their radio on their side, it adjusts it for everyone, and that's a problem. So what you're going to want to do is get rid of this _1 on the end and just leave it as TF and PRC152. Then they've got a radio that's not assigned to anybody. It'll get its own designation once they have it in their inventory. The rest of the stuff above here, essentially all just default loadout stuff, you know, stuff that we've exported from Arsenal. And then we just click save, boom, we've got our team leader loadout, no problem there. So now what we can do is cancel this. So you see this guy, he's still using his default loadout. He's still got everything set perfectly fine, no difference, everything's the same for him. We're gonna go and edit this guy quick, and I'll probably speed this part of the video up just so that you guys don't have to sit through it, because I'm essentially just gonna do the same thing I was doing earlier. Okay, cool. Here we're gonna create a new loadout. We're gonna call it Grenadier. Same thing, .sqf on the end. Yes, we edit this guy, drop this in, switch it to player, replace all, get rid of the white head face, remove the _1, save, cancel. We go to this guy, edit his loadout, load up something that I have. Okay, cool. So now we have all of our loadouts plus our loadout core still active. So for the purpose of this basic loadout explanation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the unit class names to determine what loadout the unit gets spawned as. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here, we're going to go to this guy, we're going to select the whole squad, we're going to go log classes to clipboard, and what this does is the class names for each of these soldiers you see over here when I hover over it says B soldier TLF, B soldier GLF, and essentially what those are class names for each of the soldiers. And what we're going to do is we're going to use those class names to determine what loadout the player gets when they load in. So to do this, we're going to use a basic if statement. And before I go any further, what I've done here for Notepad++, actually before that, I'd recommend that everybody get Notepad++ if they don't already have some external ArmaScript editing tool. And what you do is once you've got a Notepad++, you're going to want to go onto Armaholic or Player6, I think might have it, but probably Armaholic, and download the Arma 3 syntax tool or the syntax plugin for Notepad++. And what that does is it adds syntax highlighting for Arma specific syntax. So for the scripting language, here you'll see if I go is kind of, it highlights it and knows it's something there, and if I throw it into little commas here, you'll see that it knows this is a comment, and so on and so forth. And this is incredibly useful for scripting outside of Arma, because here I could in theory do scripting inside of this guy, and then you'll see there's like options that pop up and stuff like that, right? But it's basically impossible to create scripts inside of Arma the game. What you're going to want to actually do is make them externally. And previously, what you might have done is taken good old-fashioned Notepad here, and you open it like this. But there you see there's no syntax highlighting. And if I make a simple typo like that, remove all item player as opposed to remove all items player, what that does is that stops it from working, or it doesn't do this line of code, and that becomes a problem because or it errors out and it says there's no such thing as remove all item, you know, something along those lines. So I definitely recommend getting yourself Notepad++ plus the syntax plugin for Notepad++. It makes things, I don't know, a million times easier when you're trying to script for Arma. Anyway, so what I've done here is if player is kind of, and essentially what is kind of does is it checks this thingy over here, so in our case the player variable, and it goes if the player is a kind of, and then it checks the class name. So if the player's class name or their unit class name matches whatever you've got here, then it goes, oh okay, that's right, now I can do this. So it's a basic if statement. So if player is kind of, we're going to tell them if the player is a kind of team leader, then we open up our squiggly brackets. We want the player to exec or execute a script. So exec VM loadouts, that's the folder that our loadouts are in. Then there's a subfolder, and see along the top line here for our Notepad++, we've got teamleader.sqf, grenadier, auto rifleman, whatever. These are our loadouts. So what we want to do is say we want him to execute the team leader.sqf loadout. Bam. Cool. So what this script then does is when the player is initialized with init player local, this init player local calls loadouts core. Loadouts core opens up and it goes, okay, let's look at the player. If the player is a kind of team leader, or is part of the class name team leader, so if the player is that current unit, then it goes, oh yes it is. So now we execute the specific team leader loadout on that player, and then it'll give the player the team leader loadout. So what I'm going to do is just copy this line of code a couple times. So 1, 2, 3. These are our other 3. Boost them out, fill it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to fill out these lines of code. I'll keep it real time so that you guys don't miss anything. But so we've got a an AR, so that's our auto rifleman, grenadier, light anti-tank. Ooh, no, that's not what we want there. And then we wanted to execute the right loadout for each of these guys. So for our auto rifleman, we have what is called the auto rifleman loadout .sqf. For our grenadier, we have the grenadier loadout, and this is the value of naming things what they actually are. And we have our LAT, which is light anti-tank, light anti-tank.sqf. Cool. So now what this script does is it comes in here and it goes, if the player is a kind of B soldier TLF, then execute that script. And before I forget, let me just quickly go and grab from one of my other missions. Loadout script, and we'll add this to our basic thing. Okay, cool. So now that we've set up all of our loadouts, what we're going to do is we're going to add this last line to the script, which is execvm loadouts insignia.sqf, and what that is that's essentially our custom SAEF insignia script that we're going to call every mission. Cool. So that basically covers everything you need to know about setting up the loadouts.core and our new loadouts. And now what we need to do is double check that loadouts.core is initialized in init player local, which it is. Fantastic. And for the sake of testing it out, we're going to run this mission. And there you have it. I have spawned in with my custom loadout that's declared for this player slot. So there you can see that the rest of the squad over here, this guy doesn't have a custom loadout, this guy doesn't have a custom loadout, and that guy doesn't have a custom loadout, and that's because they are not players. They are AI, so they won't execute this custom loadout script. What we can do is show you this concept yet again with, or by rather, switching to this guy. So we run the mission again, and we go and check, and this guy, you see, he has a different loadout to that guy up front. Voila. And none of the other guys have this custom loadout, and that's how you get players to get custom loadouts set for them when they join the server. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much, or essentially rather, the basics of setting up loadouts for your missions, but these are standardized loadouts. So essentially what that means is that every single soldier of this type, so every single soldier like of the type Grenadier will, if the player spawns in as this soldier, they will get that loadout. So if I was to separate that guy from the group, so now he's in his own group, he's a new guy, if I run the mission like this, he's going to spawn in with the same loadout, because what the script does is it checks that the player has the loadout assigned to them, and then wham, player gets the loadout. Okay, so that pretty much covers it for setting up custom loadouts for your missions in terms of standardization. But what's beautiful about this loadouts.core is that you can do anything you want with this loadouts.core. So if you wanted to play around with it, maybe for whatever reason you want to give the players a randomized loadout, you can set up all the loadouts you want in an array, and you can use BIS function select random to get said loadouts from this randomization thing. The world is your oyster once you have your loadouts in its own script, and you can start mucking around with it. So I'd recommend just having fun with it, and also, you know, determining what would be best for your mission. If your mission uses player custom loadouts like our To Know Win campaign does, loadouts provided by the player, then you can use loadout.core to check who the player is and then give them their custom loadout. and so forth. So that pretty much covers it. And I hope to see you guys next time on our AI spawning, the basics of mission scripting for AI spawning tutorial. Thank you very much.